here, there's one that is titled Zoom user. Can I ask who that is? Yep. I still don't know who Zoom user is.
Roger, we ready to go?
Yeah, you have a quorum, but I just am not sure. There's someone on here that is titled Zoom user, and I'm not sure who that is.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, yep, is that Mayor
Sorry,
Lundberg?
my Zoom account is messed up. I need to get that fixed. It's
Okay,
Mayor
but it's
Lundberg from Linden.
Okay, thank you. Yep, we're good with the quorum. Are you good, Roger?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, welcome everybody to our UIA board meeting for April 13th. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for February. I entertain a motion on that.
I'll motion to approve the minutes from the February meeting.
I'll second.
Thanks, Mayor and Zach. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes on the minutes. Our next item is a resolution adopt for the tentative budget. I'll turn the time over to Jason for that.
Are we live streaming?
Thank you. Thanks, Derek. I'll share my screen here really quickly. As soon as I see the button, there it is. Looks like sharing's not turned on yet, Jake.
That's me. Thank you. I'll get that fixed. Apologies.
Okay.
Just another moment.
Okay.
There we go. I went ahead and provided you the ability to share. Let me know when it works.
Somebody let me know when that's up.
It should be working.
Ready.
Okay. So you guys can see it.
And it's not working. You got to press the button. I mean, if you try to share,
I did.
Yeah, try it just one more time. We're not seeing it.
Okay, I got it.
Great. Thank you.
There we go. That should be. Okay, here we go. Here's I'm presenting here the fiscal year 2027 executive budget. If we look, just to get started, we're looking at recurring revenue and what it's done. If you'll look, the revenue graph, we're continuing to see good revenue growth. You'll notice that it flattens out between the 26 and 27 budget. And normally that's because I'm a little more conservative in my estimates, and then we beat it a little bit. That's what we've been doing the last couple of years. Hopefully we'll do the same thing next year. But we're still seeing very good revenue growth, going up $3.8 million next year is kind of what we're expecting for UIA. Operating expenses. This one has changed significantly if you look from the prior year. And the biggest changes you're going to see in expenses is going to be in the management fees paid to Utopia and the service contract fees paid to Utopia. And then on top of that, we have marketing. I guess I'll talk a little bit about marketing first. That $1.6 million increase in marketing, that's almost entirely due to door-to-door sales and a door-to-door sales campaign that we have going on that's bringing a lot of customers on in cities. So that's kind of that will be there as long as we're doing door-to-door, but that's a short-term thing and only comes if we have new customers coming on. So that's most of the increase you see there in marketing. The management fees and the service contract fees you see increasing to Utopia, those are because Utopia has been seeing increased cost for maintenance. I believe we spoke in our last board meeting a little bit about some costs we're seeing for relocations and maintenance going up significantly at Utopia. They're moving much faster than Utopia's revenue, and that's going to necessitate a fee increase from from Utopia to UIA. The other thing that is part of the increasing costs at Utopia that we don't talk about as much in this board meeting as we do in the other board meeting is we are asking for some more employees primarily to help with maintenance. And then there's some other positions that are in there also. And so between the increase in maintenance cost and the increase in some employees, that's what we're seeing drive those costs increasing.
And just a quick clarification, we say fee increase, that's between the organizations. This isn't like to end users or customers or partners or anything like that. This is just making sure the revenue is there for these expenses between the two Utopia and UIA agencies.
Yes, that's true. Here's the drill down a little bit of this is Utopia, notice not UIA, what we're talking about for our budget, but this is showing a couple of the costs. Relocating maintenance is the blue line on the left. And then HVAC maintenance is the orange line here, which we've seen go up last year. And if you combine those two, you'll see a big increase in projected for 2027. We have a slight decrease. We don't quite go to the 2026 amount where we're projecting it to be in the 2027 budget. Part of that is because we do think some of these maintenance increases are due to having basically no winter here to stop construction. And construction does drive some of our maintenance cost increases that we see every year. So we're hoping to have something closer to what's shown here, closer to the 3 million between the two lines. Although that's still a big increase. The reason I've shown two graphs is it's kind of the same data. The only thing I've changed here is on the graph on the right, well, the colors are different, but they're the same lines with the exception of instead of the 2026 projected, I'm showing the 2026 budget. So the increase from the 2026 budget to the 2027 budget is significant. The problem is we're having overages in 2026 that we weren't expecting. So that's kind of what we were seeing in Utopia.
If we could just cancel all construction in cities, that'd be really helpful to us.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of this is driven by stuff you guys have going on inside the member cities. And if you want to if you do something, you want a line relocated, we're ending up paying for that cost. I did send out in the packet a list of some of the capital projects that we have going on. If you look here, up above is where the money's coming from. We're planning on issuing another bond next year. And that's the 20 million that's up above. That's actually how much we issued in 2026. It's I think it was right around there. Down below, we have about $20 million of capital projects. That's $4 million more than we had in the prior year. But most of these projects, if you look at the list, most of the projects are related to growing and what it takes to grow. And one of the big costs we're seeing here is we had a UIN contract that we went out for this year, and we won a lot more business than we've been seeing in prior years. But there's going to be about a $2 million build to some of those, a $2 million build that's $2 million higher than we did in the previous year. So that's part of that cost increases in there to go to UIN. And part of it is we are projecting bringing on a few more customers than I had budgeted last year. That's primarily due to the fact that we've been bringing on a lot more customers this year than I budgeted, and even I showed a decrease in the number of customers coming on from 2025 to fiscal year 2026 to fiscal year 2027. But even with that, it's still more than I budgeted in fiscal year 2026 in 26. So I do have a decrease in customers to try to be conservative, but we haven't really seen the decrease yet.
And just for context on the UIN stuff, that's the schools and libraries and things like that. I think it's actually going to cost a little more, like 2.5 million or so, but the revenue contracted with that award is over $5 million. So these are great things for us, even though it does cost some money, but we finance those projects through bonds. And that's a 5-year term on those contracts. And it was a great year for us to get that. They do them every year, and we won more sites than all of the other providers in the state combined this year. So it was really a great year for us with the school system.
Jason, Mayor Lundberg here.
Yeah.
Something that might be interesting to see in a future board meeting would be to see all the bonds that have been issued and they're graphing out when they fall off. They're complete. I know that, you end up stacking things, some fall off, some are just to kind of see the total aggregate debt load that we're carrying, and then when, different bonds are being
Okay.
met at the end of their life, just to kind of watch, the total, grow. You have to manage at some point. You might say, hey, we just have to say no to, if you can grow too fast sometimes. So just kind of watching that.
Yeah. No, I can definitely do that. That's something I do keep my eye on. I can tell you that the next bond that we do have maturing, and in 2040, both Utopia and UIA have their first bonds maturing. And for Utopia, it's the only bond they have outstanding. For UIA, it's the largest bond we have outstanding by quite a ways. Both of those bonds mature starting 2040. And so, yeah, we definitely rely on the $4 million of revenue growth. I kind of manage that toward what we do to make sure we have that management growth with the $20 million bond. And with that, you're looking at something like a $1 to $1.5 million bond payment a year to bring in that $4 million annual revenue. That's kind of how I look at it. Does that make sense, Mayor?
Yes. And do you have a sense of like what the cost per customer acquisition is currently? This is a capital intense business. It requires outlaying a lot of capital a number of years. You're not going to realize the customers, monthly payments, meeting that until a certain amount of time. It'd just be interesting to see what's a customer acquisition cost all in with the marketing and the bond service, and then when that customer basically pays for itself and becomes a profitable customer.
Yeah. Oh, I'll definitely run that by Roger. That's something we do monitor very closely. We talk very much about our cost per customer.
And it's different in every area and project type. So like we have aerial areas like Clearfield, that broke even and was profitable at a much lower take rate, and per customer acquisition was much lower because the homes were smaller or closer together, and we had aerial construction. We had, on the other end of the spectrum was Woodland Hills, which was I think about $10,000 per home to build out, but they paid for it, right? There was no debt by us. So we'll do projects like that where it's like, yeah, that doesn't really pencil normally, but when the city is willing to come in and subsidize it, or there's grant money or other things, we can even do projects that to the organization are still profitable, even though the cost is very, very high. So I could go find examples where like our cost to build and then market and then add all the other things is in a couple $1,000s range. And then on the other extreme, it could be, that was $10,000 to pass and make the system available. And we got a high take rate there. So it's like 70, 80% take rate or something. But it still isn't 100%. So your cost per customer there is on one end of the extreme. Cost per customer to Utopia, though, we're only pursuing projects that work, right? We can finance it, build it, acquire customers, and be profitable well within the term of the financing for that customer. And now, obviously, we calculate in things like churn, when we lose a customer, or what are our capital replacement costs over time, and all of that. And obviously, on all the new projects we've done for the last while, it's either UIA. If we finance it with UIA, it needs to be very profitable. If we finance it in partnership with the city, they either are subsidizing or guaranteeing the debt on that. And the Utopia portion or UIA portion is still a at least a break even to, obviously we hope they're all profitable and they have been doing very well, but the debts are guaranteed in those projects. So we're pretty choosy with this. Like, we don't build anything just because we feel some sort of obligation to do that. We have no obligation. We only have an obligation to build out and support the Utopia and UIA cities. All the new partnerships beyond that are only when it's in, hopefully our mutual best interest, right? We believe, do them because they're good for us, but they're often the best option for those partner cities as well. And we strike a good balance there. And financially, it's what has put us in a position to contribute towards the original bonds and increase that every year.
Yeah. And I will say, all that's true, Roger said about new products. What I'm looking at for this, for new projects, excuse me, not new products, for new projects when we go build out a new city. For what we're looking at in this bond, though, it's something a little bit different. What we bond for here is just incremental growth, and this is basically cost to get to a new customer. And we should
Adding a
look at
customer to an
numbers.
existing system, right? Is that like a big
A new
portion?
customer to an existing system, so we're looking at a very quick payback of somewhere between 3 and 7 years on most of these projects, is what we're looking at. Right, Roger? That's how I look at it.
There's nothing more profitable than just adding a customer to existing system. When we have to build into new development, new development isn't bad because we can find some open trench opportunities, and we'll go into those as we can. But a big portion of this is the last couple of years, we've been adding more customers per year than we ever have. And we're having to pay for those, but they have a really good ROI. So, it'd be nice to not be issuing new debt, but as we issue new debt, this is only to support very profitable projects. Well, I can't say only. We do have some capital replacement and some expansion projects, things like UEN, but they're all good things to be financing because they have a payback that's far better than the debt service that we're taking on, and even able to help us address the debt from other projects, the previous projects, right?
Yeah, I would say somewhere between 75 and 85% of the bond funds we go out for go directly toward connections, if you look at the cost. And if you look at the others, if you look at the remainder, some of it goes to going to greenfield space when your cities grow. We have to build out new main line when that happens. But that's usually only being like, $2 or $3 million a year we're talking about there. And then sometimes we do have to upgrade the system in certain areas, put in new electronics and stuff like that for growth, but usually that's pretty profitable still. So, yeah. Long answer to a question, but something we can definitely look into.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah. It's complex from area to area and
Yeah.
customer that you're serving. Understood.
Okay. But having the maintenance issues we're seeing that have just popped up the last 2 years, basically 25 and 26 is when we started seeing the maintenance issues and the relocation issues start to come up, and some of the issues Utopia is seeing. This is necessitating a change in the service contract between Utopia and UIA and how Utopia charges fees to UIA. If you look, normally we've had 4 types of fees that we've been charging the last few years. You have network operations, and that's a monthly charge for each active connection. There's provisioning, which is a one-time fee based on new connections coming in. There's field maintenance, which is for each address passed, and electronic shelter maintenance fees for each cabinet or hut that we do have in the system. Because most of the increases we're seeing right now are related to maintenance and relocation, and that's mainly affecting addresses passed. We're right now suggesting that we have an increase of from 213 from 143, about a 49% increase in that fee from Utopia to UIA, and also about an 8% increase in your network operations fee and a 10% increase in your electronic shelter maintenance fee. This will cause an additional $2.6 million to come from UIA to Utopia every year to help cover those costs, and that's what we're looking at there. I will say not all of the 2.6 million is due to the fee increase. Now that I think about that, it's actually only about 1.8 million of this increase. The other's due to growth. About 800,000 of that's due to growth. So it's not all that, but part of it is the fee increase. Wrong way. There we go. This slide here shows the proposed distribution to cities. As we know at Utopia, and this is a Utopia item and does happen through Utopia. But as we know, the bond payments are going up in Utopia by 2% every year. What we did is we kind of looked in 2017. That's when UIA started making some payments to the cities. We've kind of tried to make sure we at least make sure that you don't pay any more money every year since 2017 on the bonds in net as a city when you look between the amount that we send you and the amount that you send for the bond payments every year. So we have those amounts increasing by about 318,000 in the budget for next year. And that's what we expect, that amount more to be paid to the cities through Utopia. And the amounts are there for each of your cities. I did include one other graph. This is a graph just because I know we have a lot of board members who don't remember some of this history. But back in 2021 to 2023, back in that time frame, 2021 to 2022, we kept going along trying to pay just the amount to pay the bond payments at net 17% to the cities. So the amount wasn't going up every year. In 2023, we started paying about $1 million more per year than was in the original plan because there was some revenues available. That's something we monitor very closely every year, and we know it's something that the cities are wanting also us to look at. Really, if you look at the last 3 years, we haven't had any room to do any additional payments, primarily because our bond payments were going up very quickly, about $4 million a year, $4 to $5 million a year. And we had to have revenue to cover those. This year, because of some of our increased cost, we only increased it by the 2% increase in payments, but that's something we're monitoring on a go forward. So I just wanted to show that graphically that we are paying more than the original plan every year because of what happened in fiscal year 2023.
But well, and every year we're having to maintain that. That's a lot of money that we're putting towards those original bonds. Of course, we should, as we're able to. And we, if we can over deliver on our revenues and have a great year, there's potential for doing more, but it's still a little tight. And like to Jason's point, we've had a lot of debt service come on that we're paying, which is great. We'd love to be able to do that and pay more back to the cities. We are paying more to the cities every year, and we're ahead of that original plan. So we're pretty happy with where we are. We always want to do better, and we'll see how we do this year. But there's a lot of projects in process that we're hoping to get some additional revenue for that we haven't budgeted. But we're being pretty conservative with this budget. But I mean, if we do better, it's like, okay, well, it's always better to have a result that's better than what we budgeted. But we don't have guarantees for revenue, so it's always a little bit of forecasting. But we're going to continue door-to-door campaigns. We've mentioned in this meeting before partnership in California that could bring some good revenue there. But those things are a little in their early stage, so we're not including that revenue in this year's budget.
Okay, that's all I had. Are there any additional questions from the board?
Roger, on the fee adjustment between UIA and Utopia, I guess we'd take official action on that through a resolution or an ordinance, but that wouldn't be till we adopt the final budget. Is that correct?
That's my
Through the
understanding.
budget process at that.
I had considered bringing that resolution forward with this meeting, but I decided to wait till I had board input before we did anything, and we're planning on doing it in June. And to tell you the truth,
Jason, when's the last time that
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we're probably gonna
When's
do
the
an
last
adjustment for
time?
this current year too. Gonna propose that. Yeah,
Okay. When's the last time we made adjustments on these fees between UIA and Utopia?
fiscal year 2023.
Okay,
And frankly, we've been okay with Utopia because they've had growing revenues. Also because UIA's fees have been going up every year, and then we have the other projects like Bountiful and some of those, and Idaho Falls bringing in some revenue. We've been okay until this point. The problem is the fees really, if you look at the 2027 budget, the costs are increasing quickly.
And conceptually, it actually would make sense to me that we would revise it every year to just see where are we at with our revenues and expenses and how the two agencies are working together. We just haven't needed to because things have kind of worked themselves out just where expenses and revenues were landing. But I don't really think I think it's worth discussing every year of where are we at with the two agencies and are we appropriately billing between the agencies and accounting for revenues. So I mean, I don't really see it being an obstacle of addressing this every year, but always making sure it's appropriate, that we're being fair between the two entities. I mean, they are legally separate entities, but with like interests and like ownership. So we're not trying to do anything weird here, but obviously we have all the staffing and operations at Utopia that's supporting all of the things that are happening at UIA, which has no staff. So it's like, it's not perfectly easy to just say, here's a fee structure that's going to work forever to make sure things are right. I think we should probably assume this needs to be addressed pretty regularly, maybe not every year, but it would be a problem not to look at that and address it, more than, I don't know, every couple of years probably would be the minimum frequency I would expect to have to look at this.
I look at it every year. It kind of comes out in the budget. What happens is if Utopia doesn't have enough money to pay for their expenses, I've got to start looking for sources, and this is really the only source. So this comes out in the budget. This is looked at every year, and this is considered. It just hasn't been needed the last couple of years because they've had additional revenues.
I guess one final question for me, the non-UIA cities, is these fees assessed to those connections as well?
Yeah, they're all
Okay.
included. It's just between UIA and Utopia.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other
exist.
questions for Jason or Roger on the budget? Hearing none, we need to entertain a motion for the tentative budget and then setting the public hearing for the budget.
Derek, I make a motion that we approve resolution 26-01, adoption of the tentative budget for fiscal year 2027 for Utah Infrastructure Agency.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Brent and a second by Brenda. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, we need to do a roll call for resolution. Krista, if you'll do that for me.
Okay, Zach Watson,
Yes.
Nate Rockwood,
Yes.
Brenda Moore,
Yes.
John Flores,
Yes.
Brent Bybee,
Yes.
Grant Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Lumber,
Yes.
Lacey Smith,
Yes.
and Derek Euler.
Yes. Thank you, Krista, and thanks everybody. Thanks, Jason, for your work on that, and Roger. Our next agenda item is setting time for public hearing to consider amendments to the current year budget. Did you have anything to present on that, Jason?
No, I didn't have any 50% on that. It's just the normal first meeting in June for us is what we're looking at with that.
Okay, do we need an official action on that or?
Yeah, I think you have to actually set the public hearing for it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'd entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
We have a motion by
Second.
Zach.
Brant.
Brant did the second. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion passes on that. Next agenda items, financial update. Go ahead, Jason.
I'll make this quick because we've talked a little bit about some things, but if we look at the revenue section here, I'll just look at the projected for June 30th, 2026. You'll notice here we have some very good revenue numbers this year for residential transport, business transport, and fiber lease revenue. And these are coming in high just because our sales have been higher than we expected. So with the transport for residential, a lot of that is because of our door-to-door and our door-to-door efforts, what's driving some of that increased revenue. We're still getting a lot of customers from non-door-to-door sales, but we're finding when we target areas with door-to-door, we do get a very good take rate on those. If you look here, there's also a couple of numbers that are negative. This negative for miscellaneous revenue, this has to do with me budgeting for fund balance increase every year. It's really kind of artificial, so I would kind of throw that $700,000 is non-cash loss that you're looking at for miscellaneous revenue. Really that's not existing as far as our actual operation. So we're going to be, looking at this, we're going to be like $1.2 million over budget for revenue. And that's really, really good. And if you look at that, that tracks very close with our marketing expense being over for $1.2 million. And that's due primarily to the door-to-door effort. So with the year end, I'm probably going to be bringing forward a year end budget revision to increase these revenues and increase that marketing expense. Network operations revenue to Utopia, you've seen that's based off addresses passed and connections. Obviously, that's a little bit higher than budget because we have more customers than we projected to have, so we're paying a little bit more every month. But that's not really a ton of money we're looking at there. And capital projects are pretty much in line with where we expected with budget. If you look overall, that sometimes they go between one bucket and another, how they're classified, but they're pretty close to where we projected we'd be at year end. Any questions on our operating results? If not, I'll continue forward to the revenue charts. If you'll notice, we're looking at February results here. And as you look at this graph, you'll notice a lot of ups and downs, kind of squiggly lines in some of this. One place we usually see the line really flatten out is in January and February. And this year, you'll notice we're slightly increasing overall in January and February. And that's really kind of a big deal to Utopia. Our net sales really didn't taper as much as they have in the past. We had a little bit of a taper between January and February, but the other thing that causes our fluctuation sometimes is we'll get a big installation revenue check one month for $40,000. We might have 40,000 installation revenue. The next month we might have 10. So there's a little fluctuation month to month in installation revenue, but that's really a small point. But revenue is looking good overall is my general point. And you'll see some Utopia revenue on the blue line down at the bottom starting to increase, and that's a good thing. A lot of that's due to Bountiful. Bountiful revenues are coming in, and we're seeing a lot of sales in Bountiful. Bountiful doesn't have a door-to-door effort either. Just all the Bountiful sales are just off main marketing, so that's a good thing. Here's monthly revenue for just UIA compared to just the bond payment. So once again, continuing to increase. Any additional questions?
Okay,
I would just
thank
make
you,
the point that, like, the 6-month period, that looks bad, like the winter months. If this was like 5 years ago, we'd say that was the best 6-month period we've ever had. But because the 6 months before that was so strong, our revenue growth's gotten so good. We're having a net growth across all our systems of over 10,000 subscribers this last year. It was phenomenal, but it's like that slowdown looks bad on this, but we keep adjusting our graphs because it keeps getting steeper, right? The slope, and that makes it look not as exciting, but that was a phenomenal year, even though it looks kind of flat. And it's always slower in the winter. So we had an amazing year if you're including the summer before that. But even this winter was a really good winter compared to what we've had in the past.
Jason, this is great news. Jason, do you ever put together information that would show, this is great to see all the different bond payments and the underlying liabilities against the revenue, but it'd be interesting to see the OpEx, what that also stacks against with revenue, just to kind of track as we're looking, and we're asked to do significant bonding potentially in the future, just to watch the total operating expense that has to be maintained as well.
Yeah. And that's something, if you look at the budget, there is a net operating revenue number. And that is looked at fairly closely by bond rating agencies. That's part of their equation. The thing is when I do budgets, most of the time I'm focused on cash. I'll admit cash flow is number one, but bond rating agencies are number two, and something that I definitely am keep in mind, like the new payment from UIA to Utopia isn't something that's going to make our picture rosier with the bond rating agencies, but it's not going to cause us problems. We don't believe it's not going to cause any downgrade potential or anything like that. It just might affect how quickly we can get upgraded. Instead of 3 years, maybe it'll take us 5 or 6 years. Instead of 3 or 4 years, it might take us 5 or 6 years. But yeah, if we want to look at budgets, on the budgets, if you just look at net operating revenue on some of those budget sheets, that kind of shows you operationally, before you look at bond payments, how the operational side's moving.
And that's anticipating this recommended increase to Utopia.
Yes. Yeah. I think we're going from, you'll have to look, but it's 7 million to 5 million net, something like that, in net operating revenue. And the problem is I look at it, maybe I'll send out something to you, Carolyn, that shows you a little bit more on just an operational basis. I'm a little more cash flow on the budget. So let me do something and I'll see what I can send something to you.
What is the anticipation this year with, potentially, employee increases, labor cost, inflation stabilization versus not, or, keeping certain talent? What is that looking like for the agency this year as far as, maybe that's a good question for Roger, just with the staffing and those, we as cities each year, that's a big part of our budget discussion is employee increase expenses.
Yeah, it's the hardest part of our budget, to be honest, because it's just like, if we're just maintaining and then keeping up with the cost of living and inflation, both the internal expense of employees and pay and that, plus every contractor and external thing we have, all the costs are going up. They've gone up a lot. And in this industry, I think they've actually gone up more than inflation. So it is hard to keep things stable, keep talent. We have lost people, we've added people. So we're always dealing with that. We do have a pretty big staff increase that we're asking for. It's in the Utopia budget specifically. It's how many positions, Jason? Where are we at right now?
It's 10 positions, net 9, because we did have one that we didn't fill.
So, we have a lot of, we're adding a lot of customers, but that doesn't come at no cost. So we're dealing with an increase of operating expense that's both dealing with inflationary costs and expenses, plus having to add positions because we are growing. We have more addresses, more customers. more facilities that need to be maintained, repaired, and all of that. And like, I wish we could just say, hey, let's not do that and just have the good. But what we hope is we're still going to have the benefit of more revenue and growth relative to our operating expenses. We have been very lean the last couple of years in our growth because we really had to be because we had these $4 million increases of debt service bond payments for bond payments coming on. This year we're doing a little bit of catch up, but relative to the size of the organization and the growth we've experienced, it's actually in line with that. So I don't think it's actually going beyond like, hey, we're not going crazy with hiring people. These are positions we've vetted and argued with. I mean, not argue, friendly arguing, just negotiation between departments, and prioritizing what we've got to deal with. Get back to the point of like, if construction just kind of stopped in the state and our customer growth and projects kind of stopped, we certainly wouldn't need to be adding these positions. But coming off of the best couple of years we've had in our history of growth, we do have to grow the organization to keep up with some of that. So we are growing. We're adding positions, and we are have a proposed cost of living increase in line with what cities are doing. We kind of look at what you guys are doing. I don't know if we discussed
Is that something you can share? That I mean, it's just
Well,
because you're on the UA side. What?
Yeah, it'll be in the Utopia meeting, so it's public, but it'll be shortly. So what COLA and merit increase we have in there, Jason?
Yeah, the board has asked me to set our COLA at the change in the CPI for the Western region every year, which was 2.9% if you take December to December for 2020. We go calendar year for that for 2025. In addition to that, we're proposing a 1.1% merit for 4% total. As part of that process, we do ask all of our member cities what they're doing. And if you watch the Utopia meeting that's coming up here at 10, we go over that in detail and say, this is what all the cities said they're doing. This is what we said we're doing in connection with what the cities are doing. And we kind of try to stay in the middle of what we see our other cities doing. That's kind of where we are with that. So, but we do definitely the Utopia board goes over in detail each position that is recommended for a budget increase, and they have those discussions.
All right, thank you. It's helpful to hear. I mean, it's just, seeing a 34% increase, on the surface seems like a big jump, and the fees being charged to UIA. So kind of understanding what's happening on the other side with Utopia to, justifying that is helpful. I know that you're running budgets in two different organizations, so I appreciate the extra insight. Thank you.
Yeah, if you look at it, I would say that the majority of that 36% increase, I'd say maybe 2/3 of it's due to direct maintenance, and then we have some additional positions where you need help keep up with the maintenance. I think is kind of what you're looking, but that's the discussion we're going to have with the Utopia board is the positions, and that's part of the reason I didn't bring a proposal forward to change the fee increases right now, is because I wanted to wait till we have these discussions before I had any final numbers, because they're easy to change at this point.
The really big expense of like the relocations, that's contracted out to do most of the construction, but we still have internal needs to coordinate and inspect and all of that. So it's not just like, hey, the operating expenses are going up because of staffing. There's a huge increase related to the third-party construction expenses tied to relocation and construction work that's happening across the cities. So we have multiple buckets that are funding that, needing to be funded from that operating expense, mostly tied to growth. But that construction was more than we expected, the relocate related construction.
Is there any other questions for Jason or Roger on the financial update? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to our next agenda item. That's our service subscriber reports for Roger. Go ahead, Roger. Network upgrade.
That's my favorite part here, so I'll pull that up. You know, fortunately, things are still going very well. Actually, I don't think I shared the right thing here. Just give me a second. These reports are in your packets. You're always welcome to look at them there. Okay, I think I got. No, hold on a second. That looks right, but it's actually not the right one. I've got multiple up here. Okay, this is the right one. So anyways, this report this is kind of nice because it breaks it out with like your take rate. Cities always love to know what that take rate is. As you can see, like Bountiful is kind of taken off here. And the thresholds, we kind of mentioned this earlier, the threshold of what we consider successful, different city by city, based on, you know, is this a original city? Is this a subsidized project? Is this a backstop project, or whatever it may be? We have a lot of different structures, but it's just kind of nice to know that we're growing. There's times when we get hit. You know, we mentioned we're doing door-to-door marketing out there, and our competitors do door-to-door marketing. And I know that marketing expense is something that shows up as a big item. As we go and see what others are doing, you know, we're actually spending a lot less than like a company like a Comcast. If you were to look at, you know, what their marketing and sales budget is, you know, as a percentage of what their company revenues are and all of that, they're over there kind of stagnant and even losing a lot of customers in their markets. And spending a lot more. We're spending less relative to our budget, yet we're growing very fast. And obviously we have a better product, and we don't want to spend as much as they want to. We want to be conservative with that, but you know, we're striking the right balance there of being able to grow and be competitive, and that's very important. So we look at both sides of that. We don't want to be excessive, but we do want to make sure that the people in our communities are benefiting from this investment and work that the cities have done. So with that, you know, we're over 82,000 subscribers across all of our partnerships. You know, some of those are pretty big partnerships. It used to be kind of a negligible portion of that number, but like Idaho Falls is probably going to be our largest city by subscriber numbers here in the next couple of months, as they've been growing really fast. But you know, we're continuing to grow in all of our cities. You've got your breakout, you know, by lots of different views of this data, but it's good. You know, we continue to see new options and new bundles from other providers. There's a lot of change in this industry that we're watching closely. You know, one of our bigger competitors had been CenturyLink, who'd kind of rebranded actually they did change the name of the company to Lumen, and then Lumen branded their fiber option as Quantum Fiber, and then they were acquired by AT&T. So now we're going to be seeing Quantum Fiber powered by AT&T with potential bundling of AT&T wireless service. And so that's something that we're watching closely. Also, we haven't competed with them in the same city, but Google Fiber has been acquired by another company, and so we're watching to see, you know, is that new company going to be expanding? Are they going to change pricing? We don't like to compete with them, you know, other fiber options, obviously, so that's something we're watching closely. But we're still doing quite well across the board, and so we think people are happy with this. So we think the marketing efforts are working well, both with the general marketing of more people are knowing us and our brand and reputation than ever in the past, in addition to the very targeted marketing and sales of the door-to-door campaigns. People hate door-to-door campaigns, right? So we work very closely with them to make sure that we're delivering a better experience than most of these campaigns, so that they're not pushy and annoying and generating complaints that might filter up through city councils or mayors or anyone at the city. And so if you are getting complaints like, hey, you know, there was this pushy salesperson from Utopia please let us know. We're trying to make sure and differentiate from typical, I don't want to say typical, but what can be a common experience of frustrating people. But at the same time, we're finding that there's a lot of people who, despite all of the other efforts of the city and us and our ads and all the things, that we still show up at a door and like, what is this? And sometimes people just need that nudge. They're like, yeah, I know it's a better service, but it's just kind of hassle, and I don't really know how to do the work to sign up or where to do this. And let me show you what it is, and it's easy, and kind of help people through the process a little bit, and it's worked really, really well. So, it's almost as much an outreach campaign as it is a sales campaign. And so, again, it's working very well, but we want to make sure we're never causing problems for the cities and frustrating people. With that, we're planning to continue to do that this year across the board, really. And there's a lot of people out there that are not on the service that would be on the service if they just considered it and had the right information in front of them. And that's mostly what I had. Again, if your city-specific charts are provided, sometimes there's an error or mistake somewhere in these things, and we try to get those cleaned up. So if you notice anything that looks strange, please let me know. But again, we're very happy with that. And then we had made mention of UEN and business. Those are not addressed it's not as easy to pick that out here. But our business sales and revenue growth has also been very strong. Overall, business revenue counts for close to a third of our revenue. Is that about right, Jason? I mean, that's kind of what last time I looked at it. So it's a big part of what we do. Obviously, that's important to our cities to make sure we're a good location for businesses and tech and all of that to locate in our cities. And we remain very competitive on the business side. And we, I guess the takeaway really is just that things are good, and we always have that concern of like, is there anything in the headwind here or that's going to work against us here or anything? And it's like, I think we're as successful and as in demand as we've ever been, and that's shown by retaining customers, having high satisfaction, and despite all the other things in the market, not only are we maintaining our subscriber base, but continuing to increase our subscriber base more so than any other technology or offering that's out there in our communities. So we're very happy with how things are going, and we're going to keep at it and have another great year. And here in the next couple of years, we'll probably be celebrating 100,000 subscribers across all the networks we have. But right now 82,000 is pretty good, and we're a little past that since we're halfway in the month now. But we're about to go into summer season, which is our best part of the year. So that'll be good. Any questions about the system or growth or offerings, anything? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Sorry, go ahead, Roger. Finish.
Well, I was going to say, at any time, I mean, sometimes you don't, maybe you not want to poke at specific stuff or look down, at your city specifically. We have really good maps and records and things like that we don't like to share necessarily in public meetings, but as board members, you're always welcome to reach out and we can do a more detailed report. We have reached out, maybe not across the board, but we're trying to get city council updates scheduled with cities. We like to do those about once a year, just to make sure that your elected officials are aware of how things are going and have the ability to question things or, just to have that interface there. As you as board members feel like that's helpful, right? If depending on how things are going in your city, we don't want to overstep or anything, but if to the extent it's helpful to you and your city to have those updates, we'd love to get those scheduled. So hopefully you'll hear from us on that, and we've got people reaching out to get those scheduled. But I enjoy it. I actually love, it's easier when the news is good. The last years have been very good, and it's helpful as we're continuing to pay more and more on the old debt and getting closer to the finish line. You know, as Jason mentioned, 2040 as the kind of finish line for a lot of these bonds. And as we get closer and closer, that means more and more principals being paid, and the debt situation gets really, really good. Every year we continue to do well on our revenues and subscriber growth, and making bond payments. So it's good stuff.
Well, will you be seeing you down at St. George?
Yes, we'll be down there at the city manager meetings as well as the ULCT meetings. So please stop by our booth.
Great.
We'll
Well,
have some sort of little
sure will.
Utopia swag item or something. So especially board members, we'd love to see you down there.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else we need to go over today, Roger?
That's all we've got.
Okay, I appreciate the staff, all your work on getting through the budget, and looks like we'll meet again on June 6th and take action on it. So we'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. This is Brent.
Thanks, Brent.
I
Is there a
can.
second? I think that was Mayor Lundberg.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for all your work you do.
Thanks, Derek.